All right, so in this example, I'm going to kind of show you the other alternative for putting together a video presentation of your science fair project, which is doing a voice recording over a slideshow. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now, is recording my voice over a series of slides that I'm going to show you of a presentation that I gave at an international conference many years ago when I was working on my PhD. And so I'll just kind of walk you through this as we kind of talk about this approach. But essentially, you got your poster built as a series of slides. And so the video presentation option here is just recording your voice over these slides and, going through it, just like you would be. So, there's nothing wrong with this approach. Like I said in the other video, as far as putting your poster on the wall and recording an actual presentation, I like the other approach a little bit better because it kind of represents the face-to-face a little bit more. So here you're losing that face-to-face aspect, but it's still a very clear way of presenting your research results. And so you notice I got a big X there through my names and the university there. So just a reminder again that on your posters and on your videos, there can't be any statements that shows who you are or where you're from or any of those acknowledgments there. And so that's again in the rules there. So I put a big X through who I am. So I'm not going to present this to you, but I'm just going to go ahead and scroll through all the slides just to kind of represent, what this would look like. Again, this was an actual scientific research study that I did during my PhD that was presented at a scientific meeting of a whole bunch of researchers that had research in this area called adjuvants that help herbicides work better. And so that was what I did a lot of research on when I was doing my graduate work. So let me start clicking through the slides. So essentially with your science project, you're going to have a little bit of some introduction, a little bit of maybe some background about why you chose to do that project, what the problem was that you're looking at trying to solve. And so again, that's kind of what I got here in my presentation, is some basic background information here on a couple of slides. So you just would, maybe have some bullet points, might have some images. So, it kind of depends, I guess, depending upon how you develop your poster. But again, give some background about your project. Give us some introduction. It's a scientific project. And so part of the science world is creating a hypothesis or an objective. And so in this presentation, I had both. I presented some hypothesis statement because that's kind of a universal language. So again, this was an international conference. A lot of times when I was giving these presentations just to an audience here in the United States, I would just kind of make it a lot more realistic, real world based presentation and skip the science word of hypothesis. But for the science fair, we have a little bit of a different objective, that we want to represent the scientific process. Objective, a lot of times an objective and a hypothesis is about the same thing, so just kind of rewording the objective of this research project. And then talking about how you went about conducting your project. And so in my world, in agricultural research, a lot of the publications that I did, and of course presentations like this one, you describe materials and methods of the research project. So I got a few slides where I'm describing to my audience what the materials were, what the methods were. So this is a picture of me on the four-wheeler that I used to spray all these research trials that I did at North Dakota State. So we used a four-wheeler because we had very small plot sizes, so that way we could do a lot of replication. But we did the four-wheelers because we wanted to represent real-world ground speeds and have real-world sprayer nozzles like you see on the big sprayers. And so that allowed us to kind of do the combination. And here's a photograph. So again, hopefully you have some photographs or diagrams that are in your poster presentation that you'll be able to show and share with the judges. So as I was talking about what I was doing here, I included a little bit of photograph of what the herbicides did to the different plants that we had planted to evaluate. And this another slide showing the same thing here of one of the actual fields where I did one of the studies. And of course, statistical analysis should be part of your science project as well. We want to make sure that we're not making conclusions that are not backed up with statistics. So that's what I describe here on this slide. And then I got all my data, which all the data in this presentation, I put it in a bar graph form. And so I'd be describing the details of all these graphs here. So I'm not going to go through them and explain them to you here. Let me tell you, I really enjoyed doing this herbicide research. I learned a lot doing it, and we made some nice discoveries that helped the weed control world as I was doing this research. So again, just a lot of bar graphs kind of showing the actual research data that I'd be discussing with my audience. So this presentation, if I remember right, it was about 15 minutes long was what I was given. And so you're given a 12-minute long presentation, and the rule of thumb that I was always taught when we were doing these scientific meeting presentations is to kind of plan on about an average of a minute per slide. So I see I have 16 slides here in this presentation, so that might have been pushing it a little bit. I'd be talking really fast, which I can kind of see I'm talking pretty fast as I'm listening to myself. So once you get done showing all your data, of course, you want to tie it all together. Talk about what conclusions you can make based upon what you did with your science fair project. So that'd be your ending point. So again, this is the alternative method of creating your science fair video. It's a very, very clean, precise method of doing it. So there's nothing wrong with doing this approach if you got access to this recording software, which I think there's several examples of. The software I'm using right now is something we got with the University of Nebraska system available to us for free. It's called VidGrid, but I think there's something with Google Docs maybe that you have available that you could do some recordings over as well. So this approach, you can utilize it if you want, or if you want to use the other approach, like I gave you the example of putting your poster on a wall, and where you got a video of both yourself and your poster. I like that approach a lot because it kind of represents a lot better what we would be doing if we did have actual face-to-face judging. And so even though we're in a virtual world, hey, let's try to represent what we'd actually be doing in the face-to-face world as best we can. But any of these approaches is acceptable. There's no right or wrong approach for either one. And from a judging process, we're not going to take any points off, or not going to discount one method versus the other. We'll judge each of them as equally as we can based upon the major parameters of the science fair judging process. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know.